You were listening to the Battle Ready podcast. I liked my first intro better, but here we are. We're starting off and we're laughing already. It's a good morning in beautiful Los Angeles after a weird weekend of rain. Rain and humidity. It felt like Florida or like New York in August. It was
we should never complain about rain because we live in a desert.
But my house has leaks. My roof has leaks, Brooke.
Gotta find out at some point.
That's true.
I found out.
That's true. So you want to live in ignorance?
No, what?
Maybe,
I want to live in a dry house.
That's why God sends rain on our lives to let us know where the leaks are.
I don't know why you bring God into this.
You gotta bring God into it.
God has nothing to do with this rain.
He has nothing to do with the rain.
I don't think he's up there flipping switches going, let's leave Los Angeles in a drought, but let's let it sprinkle a little bit.
All right. Well, then I won't give him any blame for the humidity.
I'm not blaming anyone. All I'm saying is it's leaking in my house.
All right.
If you know a contractor, hit me up.
Well, there's so much going on.
So much going on. Where do you want to start?
Well, you went and got coffee this morning.
I'm not okay. I'm a victim. No, I'm not a victim. I was standing at my local coffee shop, which will not be named, and I was meeting a young guy, and he was running a little bit late, and I was standing in the line, and I was like, I was gonna get his coffee. I just texted him, hey, what do you want? What's your order? And he was Italian. It's just the reality. He was Italian and super Italian, and he had his little man purse, like satchel thing, and he was wearing shorts, and he was, he's scruffy, glasses, the whole thing, probably about 45, and he is like he cuts in front of the whole line. That's the other thing. He had all his drinks in his hand. He cuts in front of the whole line and just starts berating the barista that I see all the time, and he's like going off on him. If this was Starbucks, you guys would have given my drinks for free. This place is garbage. This place is trash. And I didn't sleep super well last night. I had pizza on my stomach. I think I was a little, I wasn't feeling super good. And I just looked at him and I was like, can you just shut up and leave the line?
Oh!
And I pointed at the door, like, can you just leave? Just shut up and leave. And there's this sweet meek Korean couple in between me and the man, and they just got super nervous. And I bring a nice level of hostility when I'm upset, and I said, shut your mouth and leave the line, and don't talk to people like that. They're serving you. They're like, this is their place. You're not even. I've never seen you here. You're not from. You're not like when I said you're not. I didn't say you're not from here. I said this is like a local spot. Why are you being rude? Leave. And he goes, shut the F up. If you want to talk about it. I said, yeah, you want to talk about it? Let's go. I'm feeling really confident. I gained 30 pounds. I've been in the gym. I feel like I got an inner strength and an outer strength.
The inner strength and outer strength is supposed to be so that you can protect yourself and protect others.
I was protecting my barista, who was important. He's an essential part. He's an essential worker in my life. This man has been through it. And so, it was bad because, if anyone in that room went to Mosaic, they're definitely not going anymore. But I was shaking a little bit, because then the next barista is like, hey, just come over here. Let me take your order. I just said, hey, look, like we're all waiting in line and you're just in here running your mouth. You have all your drinks. Just shut your mouth and leave. Like you already got it. There's no reason you need to like give it to them. And I said, or we could take it outside if you want, because he already made that comment. And he's also like on the phone, like a little like, oh my gosh, just like, oh, like what? Like I was waiting for his little poodle to pop out of his man bag, like just like soft energy. I was so angry. And then I went up to the barista and I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. Because the barista called me out by name. Hey, Aaron, like it's good. We got it. Like just chill. We got it. I'm sorry, sir. I apologize. And then I went to the next barista and I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like that just makes me really angry that people talk like that. And she's like, no, it's good. Like, thank you, whatever. And it didn't feel like a sincere thank you. So I was like, I'll drink my coffee outside. I'll leave this place. And I was outside. I ran into the Italian man and he starts going off of me, calling me all this stuff. And I just looked at him. I was like, bro, I don't go to your country and act like an actual fool. Like, why are you talking down to people who serve you? And I was like, you got your kids with you now? Like, he had his kids outside. I didn't know his kids were with him at the time where I wouldn't have been so strong. protect women and children. and I was like, I'm honestly like, I'm embarrassed for you. Like, this is how you treat people in front of your family. Like, this is garbage. Like, please leave. And like, I wasn't trying to be anything else, but it is unfortunately who I am in my dark moments. I'm probably gonna have to go to a different coffee shop for a few months until that barista is gone.
Okay, can I give you some feedback?
Sure, you could start with the Italian man.
Okay, was he bigger than you?
Yeah, but like that doesn't. I'm good.
Well, no, I would just hope he was bigger than you. Yeah.
He was not smaller than me.
Okay.
I matched his level of aggression that he was giving the barista that I gave to him.
Okay. So here are my thoughts. First of all, there's a lot of people who are narcissistic and they're condescending and they treat service workers like garbage.
That bothers me.
And I hate it.
Hate it.
And it just really irritates me, angers me. But secondly, you rarely are able to diffuse
aggression with aggression.
Yes. You could have said, hey, could you not treat people badly? Or could you change your tone? Or you could have said, hey, you're embarrassing yourself, if you wanted to be a little more intense,
Yeah.
But usually aggression, faced with aggression, just creates violence. So just want to note that.
I wanted a little violence. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted a little bit of violence.
No, and then the people that you're quote protecting now feel unprotected because you increase the intensity and the aggression in the room. So you have to realize when you're trying to protect someone that you may actually make them feel more in danger.
The baristas?
Yes.
The baristas were safe. I promise you. The baristas were safe.
But on a side note,
yeah,
the reason you respond like that is because I've developed this.
No, don't protect me, because if you protect me, then everybody's gonna be like, he's coddled.
No.
Told that's not a godly way of acting.
Oh, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about
exactly who I am in this story. I'm the guy who chops the ear off.
Yeah, you're Peter. You've always been Peter. You've always been Peter. You've never been John.
Serving ears.
You've always been Peter. And
always Peter.
But it's interesting because I've developed these 7 frequencies of communication.
Oh.
And it identifies the frequency for which people communicate.
Yes.
And one of the frequencies is called the challenger.
Yes.
And you are 100% a challenger. 100 a challenger.
Brooke, have you heard of this new thing we're talking about?
I've heard of it briefly. I haven't heard of every frequency yet.
And we're going to be releasing this content in the next few weeks.
We are.
It's going to be one of the most, I think
it's going to be great,
transformative things I've ever put out. And I'm so excited about it. But you are a challenger, but sometimes you have to adapt a different frequency for a different situation.
So
you can't see every situation as a situation that needs a challenger moment, a challenger frequency.
I don't see every situation that needs it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see every situation, There was a guy eating a poke bowl in the back of Mosaic yesterday. I didn't tell him to shut up and leave. I sent Sweet Matt over.
Who speaks from a different
and
frequency.
And Matt sent Sweet Oliver over. And so we went down the levels of sweetness.
That's right. Who even speaks at a different frequency than Matt.
I said, this isn't a poke restaurant. I kick him out. I don't care. Like,
it's so disrespectful.
It's so disrespectful.
To go to church and open up your lunch and start eating it during the gathering.
I'm mind blown by the level of disrespect from people that come into church. Like, it's insane.
We are in Hollywood.
But does it mean people are more stupid here? Or more disrespectful here?
I think it's that people are more inherently irreligious, and so they don't treat a space as sacred. And maybe it's that they have a more entitled personality. So I think they should.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I think people actually have a huge background of faith and religion.
Mm.
They come here because they're narcissistic, and then they believe every room is theirs.
Yeah, that was the second reason I was going to say.
But
I do think they most of them come from a religious background.
Because I find my atheist friends are more respectful when they come into church.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sit corrected. I do think that the atheists and agnostics who come are more respectful because they know it's not their space.
They know it's not their space.
Yeah. And so they act like invited guests.
LA, the city of kids who come here from bad parents.
Not bad parents, bad parenting.
What's the difference?
I have a question.
So was I wrong?
Well, here's my question.
And how wrong was I?
So you see someone berating someone, it's causing anxiety, stress in the restaurant. You don't think it's fair that the barista is being treated this way.
Yes.
Now, you said your response, Aaron, was not correct, but
I didn't say that.
He did say it wasn't correct.
I didn't say that.
okay, well, it didn't seem like you were a fan of the way you responded.
I realized when I said it as harshly as I said it,
Yeah.
everyone around me got scared.
Okay, so, but at what point, it's like, it reminds me of every single actor and spectator sitting at the Oscars who watched Will Smith punch Chris Rock. No one did anything.
Right, that would not be Aaron. Aaron would have done something right away to defend Chris Rock.
I would have whooped Will Smith's butt off camera.
what's the good middle ground? Like, what's the healthy response that still doesn't sit apathetically and let it happen around them?
I don't know.
Yeah, being passive and doing nothing is not the answer. And but trying to outmatch the aggression isn't the answer either. Well, let me say this: it's not the first answer. It may become the answer, but it's not the first answer.
So the
first answer is try to defuse the aggressive person.
Right.
You defuse the bomb before you set another bomb. Yes.
This is starting to turn into Hurt Locker.
I like it. Defuse the bomb, but have another bomb side stage just in case.
Yeah.
My thing is this. I understand being rude because I have been rude, but I am not rude to people that I feel don't deserve it. As I live by a moral code.
Right, but that guy felt like they deserved it. So he would, if he was telling a story, he would say, I only acted the way that I should have acted because those people deserved it. That's a part of the way entitled people think.
My thing is like, when you walk in and you go, Starbucks would have done this for you're not in Starbucks, bro. Starbucks is 2 blocks away. Go to Starbucks. Like, don't. And then I came out and it was like,
Every fight isn't your fight.
It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a fight. It was a frustration.
No. You have to allow people, first of all, to defend themselves. The baristas were handling it. And if they didn't handle it the way you wanted to, that's not really, it's not up to you to decide.
Maybe it was out of a selfish desire because I felt like maybe I was just out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was, to be honest. I was more frustrated than I should have been. And I resorted to anger, not to violence because there was nothing happened, just to anger. And I think I was just trying to be more aggressive than his aggression, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that you have a defender mindset where when you see someone being aggressive against a lesser powerful person, you jump, you feel instinctively moved to act.
Yeah.
It's almost as if you don't have to think about it. You're not the person that thinks twice, should I defend this person?
No.
You later go, oh, did I over defend them?
Yeah. And that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
so what I love about you is that you are a defender of the weak, and you are a person who will stand up to bullies. And even if it's going to get you hurt, you stand in between the person who's abusing and the person who's powerless. What I think that you have to grow in is, can I diffuse the bomb rather than being a bomb?
I would have whooped him in front of his son too.
That's not the point.
I would have.
See,
his son would have grown up with it. I remember, Daddy, you remember that time? Remember that time you went to that coffee shop in Hollywood?
That would not make the world better. It would traumatize his son too.
I know. It made me sad when I saw the kid. I was like, dang. I wonder if this kid ever looks up at his dad and goes, Dad, why do you have a purse?
Aaron.
What?
You're still a little mad.
I'm so angry. It took me a minute. I was shaking a little bit.
Did you get your coffee?
I got my coffee and I went and sat outside. Because I was like, I'm kicking my own self out of this coffee shop. I wasn't proud. I was like, oh, this is embarrassing. I didn't realize it was, like when you're singing in your house and then someone is in your house, you didn't realize someone's in your house. You ever had that moment?
Yeah. Here's 2 words.
I felt like I was caught singing.
Yeah. Impulse control.
It is. I gotta. Yeah. Okay. I feel like I've had a good. I genuinely feel like I've had a good grasp on impulse control. I know that I've been diagnosed with PTSD, hypervigilance, because of some of the situations I was a part of when I was younger, and controlling that is a real thing. And I think I've put in lots of time to work on that. I definitely have been feeling my patience waning. So in that situation, Oh, this is interesting. I'm glad. Thank you for the advice.
Yeah.
So I failed the situation.
Well, no, I think it's not black and white, because I think most people err on the side of they do nothing.
Yeah, I'm shocked because like the baristas, it felt like were more mad at me afterwards than mad at him.
Yeah, and that's going to happen.
Then I looked at them and was like, "Are you okay?"
By the way, one of the most dangerous places to be is when you jump in to stop a fight.
Yeah, it's like domestic violence.
Yeah, because the people fighting will actually beat you up and then go back to fighting each other.
Yeah, it's
they end up with a common enemy. So it's a very odd psychological thing. The fact that you're defending the baristas doesn't make them see you as a defender.
Interesting.
Because for them, you exacerbated the problem. He would have yelled at us and eventually went away.
Yeah.
and so that's a part of the dynamic. All right, but thank you so much for being so transparent about this morning's situation, though. Speaking of,
at least I didn't get what.
Speaking of LA's potential violent environment, something happened the other day with our mayoral candidate.
Yes.
Karen Bass.
Yeah. And best I understand, her house was broken into.
Yep.
And someone stole 2 guns.
2 guns.
That she had secured there at the house.
Yep.
But they didn't steal anything else. No jewelry, no money.
Actually, there was cash and other things, and they didn't steal it.
So they went in specifically to steal the weapons.
It's odd. She says they were safely stored away, which I believe. I think it's pretty it's kind of a big deal in California. You have to safely store. You have to but what is safely?
Right.
Is that in her dresser drawer? That's or is it in an actual safe?
It was in a Brinks lockbox.
Okay.
In a Brinks lockbox.
Yeah. See,
that's not safely stored. That wouldn't be deemed safely stored.
Really? Why?
No, you would need a gun safe, I think, to be safely stored.
I think it is a Brinks label gun safe.
Okay.
Well,
so it's different than a
Yeah, but then that makes me ask so many questions. How did they know there were guns in a Brinks lockbox?
I don't know.
How did they?
Maybe they didn't. Maybe they just took the lockbox.
How did they know where it was?
I don't know.
But I do think it's interesting that in LA, because Karen Bass would be seen probably more on the
super liberal side,
super liberal Democrat, side of the political spectrum, and she'd probably be for gun restrictions. And
we have a lot of candidates, but essentially we have Rick Caruso, who owns the big malls, the Grove, the Galleria, the Americana, the whatever the version of is Pacific Palisades.
Yeah.
Billionaire.
Yeah.
And then you've got, and he's a Democrat, but he's a fake Democrat. He's really a Republican that switched over to be a Democrat so that he could, because you're never going to win the mayor of LA being a Republican. And then you have Karen Bass, who I don't know what she's done. I'm not as educated on her background, but
I do think it's interesting that someone who would be on the
far left,
on the left of the spectrum, would actually not just have a gun, but have 2 guns.
Tomb Raider.
I mean,
Tomb Raider.
One for each hand.
Dual wielding.
I don't know. It's like one for when you run out of ammo.
One wasn't enough. It was like, honey, get up, let's go. Someone's at the door.
What are you saying early in Karen Bass? Got?
No. I think it's, it's a bad headline too, because I'm sure she seems lovely. They seem like both interesting candidates. And it's just it seems like a bad look for a Democrat to lose their guns. Or
even to have guns in this conversation, right?
Probably voting a lot towards, gun reform and gun control and in this environment, and I think it's scary, right? You get your gun stolen and you wish that on no one to then have, I don't have guns.
And she says she's in terms of feeling safe to walk in her neighborhood, she feels like she's a 10 out of 10.
So do you feel like it was a targeted attack? Someone had to have known there were guns in that house.
Yeah. I don't know how you break in for nothing but guns if you don't know guns are there.
It's a very weird thing.
And then I guess I would just not assume that Karen Bass would have a gun. So
I think that's more surprising.
That is very, very surprising to me. And then when she says she feels perfectly safe, if you feel perfectly safe, why do you have a gun or have 2 guns? Right?
Yeah.
And because that doesn't match, because it seems like almost like somewhere the narratives don't match. And either you have to recognize the city is really a mess. Mm-hmm. It's violent. There's incredible, there's an explosion of theft and crime and violence. And homelessness and in the city.
Yeah.
And so I understand why she has 2 guns. And but then she says, no, she feels perfectly safe. But if you feel perfectly safe, why do you have 2 guns? It doesn't match for me.
I don't know.
And I'm just kind of curious because I noticed during the pandemic, I think I saw something like 100,000 guns were purchased in California or something like that, some ridiculous number. And I remember going to this like Bass Pro Shop or some place like that has guns, like it has a whole gun shop.
Yeah. It's got everything. It's like hunting, fishing. It's like outdoors.
And
world.
And I went back there and I looked at the racks and I said, how come you don't have like hardly any guns? And I wasn't buying a gun. I was just curious to go, we're sold out.
Where were you at a Bass Pro Shop in California?
I don't even remember. I think there's one toward the valley or something like that.
Okay.
And it was actually when I was doing some research for designs and I was trying to look at what Mid-America does and everything like that. And I know, but I was and Kim, your mom, she loves stores like that,
Okay.
But anyway, I was shocked. They were saying our guns are sold out. And during the pandemic, people were buying guns left and right.
So crazy.
And so I just wonder what it says, that it's not just one. It's an interesting reminder. Not just conservatives are buying guns, but liberals are buying guns, and not just conservatives have guns in their homes. But liberals have guns, and even more than one gun. And I just wonder how much our political narratives actually match the lifestyles that our politicians are living too.
So interesting.
Yeah. And because it even goes back to when Gavin Newsom every time he put restrictions in California, he would go on vacation in Hawaii or go on vacation somewhere else. And I do think we're at a time where we need to begin to hold our candidates accountable for the policies that they advocate and the lives that they live.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I just thought it was a really interesting little nuance. I don't really have that much of a judgment on it.
Okay. What do you think about, did I cut you off?
No.
Yeah, there's no judgment on that. It was just an interesting.
I just thought it was interesting. Yeah.
Especially in LA.
I just love to know how many Democrats actually have guns in California.
Brookie?
That would be such an interesting
Got some guns underneath your floorboards?
No guns at this time.
Okay. Would you get a gun?
I would have no use for it. I would hurt myself before hurting someone else. It makes me nervous with kids.
Yeah, and I just want to say I do not have guns, but I have pulled a sword on criminals.
Sword.
Because there were
really took it to like the American Revolution era.
4 guys were coming in to break into our house.
I remember.
And I pulled out my sword and turned off the lights. And Kim goes, "What are you doing?"
You turned off the lights?
Yeah. I was there actually. He handed me a bat. He said,
"Is this the hypervigilance thing? Is this what it's coming from?"
Yeah. They were like, it was like the whole death threat era. People trying to kill the family, And
no, so I had a weapon. It just wasn't a conventional weapon.
Yeah.
And then Kim goes, "What are you doing? Turn on the lights. That way they'll go away."
Yeah. I'd be more afraid of mom though. No gun. Mom, no gun, no sword. Mom, like in the octagon, Nate Diaz style, on whoever. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about a couple of things. We haven't wanted to talk too much about politics, but let's get into it. How do you feel about President Biden forgiving student loans?
We haven't talked about politics in a while, and I actually have some pretty strong feelings on several things that have come out. When I first heard about the quote student forgiveness, it's not student forgiveness.
Student loan forgiveness.
Yeah, student loan forgiveness. It's not student loan forgiveness because the loans aren't forgiven. Loans have been transferred. It's student loans transference. The people who took the loans don't have to pay for them. The people who did not take the loans have to pay for them.
It's up to $10,000, correct?
No, it can be up to $20,000.
Okay.
And so $10,000 for many, $20,000 in some situations. And what was interesting is when I first heard about it on CNN, they were saying it was going to cost us like something like $30-40 million or something like that. No, they said $30 to $40 million. And No, I'm sorry. You're right. It was $38 billion that I heard. And I said, oh, wow, that's a lot of money. And then I began seeing reports everywhere else where it was going to be minimally $300 billion, up to $500 billion. And then over a 10-year stretch, it would end up costing us around $1 trillion. And I'm going, wait a minute, how is it possible that they're saying it's going to cost $38 billion when it actually the minimal estimates are $300 billion? And who's going to pay for that? I had student loans, and I paid for my loans, and it took me a long time.
Yeah.
And I was never bitter that I had loans. I was grateful that they gave me loans so I could go to college.
Right.
And I paid every part of that. And so it frustrates me that this level of thinking is seen as generous, humane, or politically intelligent, because you forgive all these loans, but you keep giving loans. That doesn't make any sense. And I thought about it in that moment. I said, look, if you really thought that people should not have loans for colleges, then you need to stop giving the loans first. You stop the bleeding first. You do triage. And then you go back through and do the forgiveness. Although I don't think you should have forgiveness. I think people should have to pay the loans that they took. I don't think a guy who's a carpenter or a plumber or a woman who's a teacher or a nurse should be paying back the loans for someone else who got their degree in general studies.
Yeah.
And I think it's completely wrong.
Right.
And so first of all, I'm going, we're in the middle of a recession. We've just come out of this pandemic. We have tens of millions of people who are not going to work. And what you do is you say, we're going to forgive all these college loans. And for my estimation, this is simply the Biden administration buying votes.
Right.
I'm just going to say that point blank. That I'm from El Salvador. One of the things you learn early on is the strategy of socialism is to tell people who are poor, we're going to give you money. We're going to take care of you. We're going to supply what you need.
Just get out there and vote for us.
Yeah, just vote for us.
Yeah.
And
it's a very manipulative approach.
It is.
It feels manipulative.
Yeah.
But
so
before
I'm completely
it,
against it. I want to say that. I'm completely against the quote college loan forgiveness program.
Interesting.
100%.
Okay. Brooke, thoughts?
Can I ask a follow-up question?
No. I want your thoughts. Yeah. I'll ask the questions here.
On the forgiveness?
Yeah.
No, on Karen Bass and my earlier
no on forgiveness.
Personal triage.
College loan forgiveness. Come on, give us your thoughts.
I mean, I have student loans, so I'm not going to be opposed to it.
So you're benefiting from the student loan, and so you feel grateful. What was it like when you heard the headline?
I was like, oh, thank God.
Okay, so in your mind, after you thanked God.
Okay, Pastor Erwin, I heard that irony right there.
And but you should have been thanking the government, I suppose.
Oh, thank Biden.
Yeah. Who did it come across your mind? Who's actually going to pay for this?
Yes, of course.
And who did you conclude?
Me, another person, lots of people.
but did you?
No. Just let her speak. Just let her go. Come on, open it up. Let's hear.
Do I think it's a comprehensively wonderful, beneficial solution for everyone in the United States? No, I do not. Do I think it's a short-term benefit for me? Yes, I do. So in my gratitude for it, I can see it's not the best solution, but I'm also not going to turn it down. And it's I've heard so many different perspectives on it. I've heard so many, even people I would count as friends who hate it and don't agree with it. If people didn't pay for college and they don't agree, I'm a little bit less inclined to take their argument as to heart.
You mean because they didn't borrow money, you take their opinion less seriously?
Not less seriously.
No, that's what you just said.
Well, it doesn't have it's like.
You should be listening to the person who didn't borrow money.
I don't think their opinion's invalid. It's usually people some people's parents could afford to pay for them to go to school.
Oh, yeah.
And that's great. But it's not the situation I was in. And
right.
Any job that I wanted, any job I wanted to make a living wage, to be able to raise kids, especially to live like in Los Angeles, it was going to require a bachelor's degree. I went to a state school.
I am proof that is not true.
I would have hired you without a BA. I never asked you about your college background.
Well, not this job specifically, but any job in communications, any job with salaried, with
You write scripts
benefits.
On the side, right?
I do, yeah.
They ever ask you where you went to college?
They do, actually, yes. I went to a screenwriting program in my school with people who are involved in the
So
industry.
you got
and
the
it's a
job based
benefit.
on you going to UNC and taking that screenwriting class?
Not based on that.
How'd
but
you got the job because you had good connections? And you're I can't see you, so it's harder to argue with you.
That's good. Where would I have learned how to do what I'm doing on the side if I hadn't learned it?
Talk to Tarantino.
In school.
Talk to what is it?
Here's
Ben
my
Affleck
point.
and,
Here's
and
my
Matt
point.
Damon.
I needed the school. I went to what you would consider to be a very affordable school. Chapel Hill In-State
Yeah.
Oh, in-state, yeah.
is very affordable.
Rated #1 for public universities in America.
I worked really hard to get into that school,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to take out loans to do it. Have I been paying them off for the 10 years I've been out of school? Yes. Are they paid off? No.
Jeez.
So that's just the reality.
Okay, here's the strange thing, Brooke.
Oh, no.
I actually think that if you have a college loan
hmm
and you can get it forgiven by this program, you should definitely do it. See, I think any American who can take advantage of what the government has just told them, I'll give you money for, my answer is yes, go
Yes.
take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not against the person who's taking advantage of it.
hmm
I want you to understand that. And I'm against the language which I think is deceptive.
hmm
And because the loans are not forgiven, they are transferred.
Yes.
And I still think that it's about governments protecting institutions rather than actually being for individuals. Because the truth is, if they cared about this problem, they would force universities to charge less
Oh, yeah,
for
absolutely.
tuition. Universities have massive endowments. They have billions of dollars in banks, and
Yeah,
they don't actually ever have to charge another student tuition for the rest of time. But they do, and they charge an immense amount of money. And so why isn't the government actually dealing with the universities overcharging students for their degrees rather than having made loans in one generation and then forgiving them in the next generation, which will be paid for by the next generation?
Okay, you ready for this? UNC's investment fund has $8.3 billion in total assets,
Yes.
making it one of the 25 largest college university endowments in the United States. That's Ivy League level.
And I actually worked for
You don't.
that department in school.
And you were never like, let me hit an account transfer. These are the thoughts that I would like to hear from you, Brooke, because I wouldn't talk about endowments because I think it's such a great point. My question for you isn't so much on like reaping the benefits, but what do you think about it as far as the political agenda behind it? Do you believe there's a political agenda? If so, if not, let us know.
There's always a political agenda. Always.
Do you find it appropriate?
I find it advantageous.
Do you think that it is incidental that the forgiveness has come right before the midterms when the
No.
Democrats are afraid of losing the House?
Absolutely not. And Elizabeth Warren ran on this policy and she lost soundly because no one cared about it enough to make it their full platform and to vote her in because she wanted that.
And then Biden gave us a little taste of that stimmy. He's like, let me give you a little hit of the stimmy, and then let me give you a little second hit, and then let me forgive a little bit of loans.
I think it's a systemic issue.
Right. So do you think that the government is being fiscally responsible in the middle of coming out of a recession, or in the middle of a recession, coming out of a pandemic, to suddenly decide to forgive $500 billion worth of loans?
I feel like I need to say no because I don't know what the Treasury is doing. I don't know how it all plays out in the future. I feel like it's never going to be fiscally responsible. Like the US is never going to have a $500 billion windfall and say, we have this, this liquidity. Let's just give it to people with student loans. It's always going to translate into more debt. But
I am very grateful that you were able to get a student loan. I'm very grateful you went to UNC Chapel Hill. I'm very grateful you came and worked for us. I'm very grateful that it taught you the skills to do other things. And I'm very grateful that you got a student loan forgiveness. When it's personable, it changes.
Yeah.
Do I like that I am paying for your student loan forgiveness? Not so much, but I'm not. This is the tough thing, is that you know that they're going to take the money from you anyways. When you live in California, I understand that I'm living in I'm not living in a state of the United States of America. I'm not just living in the state of the United States of America. I am living in a social membership club called California,
Yeah.
where I am gouged for the amenities of the beach, the amenities of the snow, the amenities of the desert, the amenities of the weather, and I pay for that as well as paying for other student loans.
But the money is going to be taken from you regardless.
And that's why I feel less bad about it, because I live in California. If I live in Texas, I'm feeling more angry.
Well, we don't even know
Right?
where like 90% of our tax money is allocated. This to me is like a soapbox issue to say you're using my money for that. We don't know what they're using our money for.
Well, we definitely know they're sending a lot of missiles to Ukraine. And that's a real thing. Like I've been like the data, just like the online data for like how much there was a lawsuit that just got published. I think the last like 2 months. It's been going on since the Gulf War, or I guess the second Gulf War. So George H.W. Bush, right? That had been and I guess they hired a man who is an ex-Marine, and he started like a Black Ops group. But outside of the Black Ops groups, they created like fulfillment companies, and he fulfills, I'm butchering this, I don't think it was a Black Ops group. All he did was supplement food for the government in Iraq. And he realized that he could just invoice the government for almost anything once he got approved by the government for this fulfillment program. And I think he stole like $128 million from the government because they're just so negligent, and they didn't find it for 20 years. So it's 20 years after the war.
Wow.
And they're now figuring out that this guy was just charging like $3 million for cases, $4 million for forks. And I'm sure stuff cost a lot because you're buying in bulk, you're feeding an army. But he was taking advantage of the government at such a high level, and they didn't realize 15, 20 years later. At what point is our government so inefficient that, you know, we can't even get a venue for Mosaic in Venice because the contract has been sitting in an email in risk management and in the LUSD district, and they won't approve us. They've approved us before. We've signed multiple contracts with them over the last few years. They know who we are. They even say hello when we call them on the phone. We've called them twice a week for the last 2.5 months, and the event passed. We couldn't do the event because we didn't get approved by the district, and they're like, we're so sorry, we just haven't gotten around to it. At what point does this government become so inefficient and dysfunctional that we're paying for basically a bad membership program?
Well, I think that's been true for a long time.
How long?
And well, I mean, governments are inherently inefficient. And the more you allow a bureaucracy to expand, the more inefficient it becomes. You don't end up getting more money to the person who needs it. You get more money to the organization that's managing the money for the people who needs it. But I just wanted to stay a little focused on the college thing. Your interest rate was probably what, 3%, Brooke?
I'm not sure.
It's pretty close to free money. And
For student loan?
Yeah, student
Probably
loans.
doesn't feel very free to Brooke though.
No, because you always have to pay it back. But it's when I had my student loan, the interest rate was so low that at least it didn't have this compound effect that I was just always paying more and more and more and more.
Right.
It was actually accessible and doable. The challenge is that when you're the government and you use moving money as a way to mobilize support and allegiance and votes, it can be incredibly dangerous. And so I actually was really frustrated going, this is so political. All you're doing is buying the votes of millions of people, and it's not the poor. When you're saying I'm helping the poor, you're actually helping probably the middle upper class.
Right. But there was a cap, right? You couldn't make more than $150K to get the student loan forgiveness?
Yes.
Yeah.
Per household.
Per household.
Per
right?
household, yeah.
Which,
yeah,
that's really tough. Because if you're in I think there was a lot of people who are outraged because if you're in California, most couples are trying, making a little bit more than that.
Yeah, if you're in California, you can barely live, and it's really difficult. But if you're in other parts of America, $125,000 a year is a really good income,
right?
All right, so let's move on from that because I want to address one other political issue that is for me is disturbing.
Talk to us, but then I want to talk about Mar-A-Lago.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
No, because I think it's polarizing, right? Because you have one side where Biden, President Biden, would be respectful, has bought votes essentially, and then you have this FBI raid on former President Trump's Mar-A-Lago estate, and on one side I'm going, could they be handing him a win by raiding his house because he's going to run on if they did it to me, they could do it to you.
Yeah.
this home invasion of privacy, invasion of
Yeah, well, there's a lot more
constitutional
nuances to
rights.
that, I think. But
no, I think there's lots of nuances to it.
yeah,
I'm not advocating for it. I'm saying why?
It's
Why would
pretty
they?
funny.
Why would they be that obvious?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say one funny thing, Brooke. If you agreed that the government should forgive the loans, you're a socialist.
We're moving on from this.
No, you're a socialist. But if you take the loan, you're a capitalist.
I'm both. Social cappy.
Yeah, if you accept the forgiveness, you're a capitalist.
Sounds like
Cappy.
a government sorority. I pledge social cappy.
Yeah. And then so we'll get to Mar-a-Lago in a minute. But one of the themes that I've heard a lot over the past couple of weeks, maybe past couple of months, is the Democratic Party saying, and President Biden said this, basically the MAGA Republicans are the most dangerous threat to American freedom, and that they need to be stopped, they need to be destroyed, and they need to be extricated from American culture. And yet the Democratic Party has spent at least $43 million that I've been able to track through different reports to help MAGA Republicans win their primaries.
Right.
So,
because they believe that the Democrats will actually beat them in the runoff in November.
Right. So they don't want to run against the moderates or the conservative Republican who's not MAGA because they don't think they can beat them. So they're putting money behind the MAGA Republicans and then saying, you see, look how much power Trump has. His candidates are getting elected. So they're keeping Trump in the light. They're keeping Trump in the middle of the center of power. They're helping the Republicans elect the most extremist candidates and then saying they're the greatest threat to American democracy and freedom. What is a greater threat? A person who, quote, sincerely holds to a far-right conservative view, or the person on the left who is so corrupt and manipulative that they would rather have that person elected with the chance that they could beat them rather than lose the election to a moderate, well-rounded Republican who is closer to their views. And I find this to be one of the most disingenuous, hypocritical, and dangerous postures on the political spectrum right now. And I don't know why CNN and MSNBC are not talking about that hypocrisy, because that should be front and center, that you cannot get on the podium at the White House and say the greatest threat to America is this stream of the political party on the right, and then have your party pour millions and millions of dollars to make sure that candidate is elected. And I saw a very similar thing happen when Trump was elected. My perception of this is that every news network gave Donald Trump unfettered access to their mediums when he was the candidate for the Republican Party. Trump could call CNN and be on television within minutes. He had so much access, it was unbelievable. And in my mind, I kept thinking to myself, this is so strange. Every news network wants Donald Trump to win the Republican nomination. And I'm convinced they did, because they were absolutely convinced that he was the most beatable candidate for Hillary Clinton. And then the moment he is elected Republican candidate, all those networks flipped. And now they went heavy against Trump, anti-Trump. And they didn't think that this would backfire on them. But Trump won, and they don't think it's going to backfire on them now. But it may backfire on them. And if MAGA Republicans get elected to the Senate and the House, and they end up having the majority, the Democratic Party can blame no one but themselves for helping make that happen. That's my input on that.
So you're saying that Brooke's team is electing all of the MAGA Republicans to
Hey, I'm
to the
social
primaries.
cappy.
You're social kappa phi right here.
I'm saying that American politicians don't actually care about our country. They care about power and winning elections.
So what do we do? What's next? How do we change things? Can things ever be changed?
I think there's a culture in American politics that feels irreversible, and it makes me very nervous. But All right.
But what do you do in the long run, right? Like, if no one will call out I'm sure what the Democrats are doing right now has been done for all of eternity.
Yes.
You always help the person that's more beatable get elected. I'm sure
I'm
someone
that's probably
figured that
happened,
out
yeah.
and was like, that guy's kind of dumb, but he's good looking. And so we're going to get the dumb, good looking guy to win so I can beat him, you know? And that's just the way it probably has worked for the entirety of history.
Yeah. And if that's the way it always works, I just at least want to turn on the light and go, hey, we need to pay attention to this because we're all being manipulated.
We are.
Yeah. All right. So
what do you think about no, I want to have a question.
All right.
I have actual real question. What
Okay.
do you think about the monarchy? How do you, I mean, obviously we've lost the queen and
Yes.
and as we, you know, I find it always really interesting that the Americans care so much about what's going on in the royal family.
Mhm.
We have a very toxic relationship with our former oppressors. But I also I love the monarchy. I love the crown. I love the shows. I love the gossip. I love all of the things.
And you actually love England.
And I love England. You know, I would have stayed with our parents probably. Taxation without representation? Whatever. We're getting taxed for student loans forgiveness. At least we'd have healthier traditions and we'd have Premier League soccer in the United States. What do you think of the monarch?
I've always been against monarchies,
Yes.
but I have affection for Queen Elizabeth.
She was, are they calling her Queen Elizabeth the Great?
The Great, yeah.
They're calling her
Yeah.
the Great, aren't they?
I know it's a great loss for the nation, for the
Our nation?
no, for the British Empire,
Yeah.
for England, for their family. I want to also just be aware that it's a great loss for people, and she really seemed to be a very noble woman and a woman of faith.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think that the last years of her reign were filled with so much controversy and
With
from
Andrew and Diane and
Diana, right? From
Diana.
Princess Diana to
Meghan.
Andrew to
to all of them.
everyone,
Yeah.
Harry, and so I think those were some really troubling years for her.
Right.
And so anyway, but I have never been for monarchies. I don't understand how
what's
that monarchy
your
has
take on it?
existed.
Yeah.
I
Why is it that we need to have king and queens and prince and princesses still?
I don't know why England still carries that tradition. I'm not sure.
They love it.
They do love
they
it.
adore
I love it.
I don't not love it. I don't like the idea of it. I think it's absurd. You know, people get really caught up on the monetary aspect, the financial.
They have billions
the
of dollars
HRH.
worth of property and wealth.
I mean, I think I read a study that they own like 60% of the United Kingdom's coastal line,
I don't know.
like all of the ports and the shipping. They own a lot of that.
Their assets are about $27 billion.
Okay. They're an empire. They're a financial empire that hides behind the tradition of royalty.
But then they get taxed. They get tax dollars as well. The HRH.
They get taxed?
No, they get tax dollars. They receive
Yeah.
like an endowment from the government. The
They do.
HRH.
Right.
Not the HRH. No, that's Her Royal Highness. That's the abbreviation.
Oh.
They call it something. It's like essentially like a fund that they get access to, and that like when it's Meghan Markle and her husband's name, Prince Harry and Prince.
Oh, he's not a prince anymore, just Harry.
Just Harry.
No, he is still a prince. I read this whole thing. He is still a prince, but he can't use his HRH, Her
okay.
Royal
Royal
Highness
Oh, okay.
abbreviations. So he is still a prince.
Okay.
But under Queen Elizabeth, if you leave working for the monarch,
Mm-hmm.
then you're no longer a employee. You're not doing your
Yeah.
HRH duties. You don't get the money.
But now his son is a prince
Wow.
and his daughter.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Now he's
Being an immigrant from a Latin country, I'm against anyone being given wealth by virtue of their birth.
right.
For me, I have a scrappy, you work yourself from the bottom to the top. Your only ceiling should be your talent, your ambition, your intelligence, your passion, your willingness to risk and sacrifice.
Right.
I don't like the fact that people who maybe could never create any income based on their own capacity suddenly become billionaires because they were born the son of a queen. I'm just not a fan of
Yeah.
that approach toward secession. You know, and
but I guess it's really the result of being so dominant in a military perspective. They were so dominant for so many years, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
England,
the monarchs.
Yeah.
So they're so dominant that they were generous enough to give some land back to the people and realize that killing for a title was no longer the way to go.
Yeah, it fell out of style.
Right.
Yeah.
But now they're kind of left in this place because, you know, I was reading this article over the weekend talking about how that people really get upset about how much money the government gives the royal family, but that the royal family actually generates so much money from tourism because people are constantly trying to visit the United Kingdom, to visit the palaces, to tour the grounds, to do all of these things, that they're really just receiving what they generate for the government.
And I'm sure as much as it's irritating me, I'm sure there's a lot of truth to that.
But then is it much different than Disneyland?
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, that, I mean, we've been to England. Kim loves the crown. She loves everything about the monarchy.
There's such a fantasy around it.
Yeah, and so I could see it. We've been the tourists. We've been there. We've, you know, we've contributed.
Me
to
too.
There's
so much history to it.
And I find it fascinating, and I do find it intriguing, and, but it creates for me a huge conflict.
Right.
It was probably 20 years ago, Kim and I were in the British Museum for the first time and getting a tour. And I remember I said out loud, "Hey, I thought this was the British Museum. There's nothing in here that's British."
Yeah.
And Kim's like, "Shh." And I go, "Hey, it looks like you took this from a lot of other countries. When are you going to give it back?" And the tour
National
guide,
History Museum
tour guide was like, you know, looking at me with a little bit of disdain.
Oh, you said it out loud.
I said it out
Kinda
loud.
like me in the coffee shop. Interesting. Okay, I see the connecting points here. Okay, full circle.
I did not like. I just thought it was interesting that we're seeing a museum, and what we're seeing is everything they stole from other countries in the world when they conquered them. And I thought no one sees the conflict here. No one sees the dissonance.
No. They would those pyramids. The pyramids would be inside of England if they could have figured out how to move. It's got to be more like mummies and tombs.
Yeah.
In England than there are in Egypt. I do find that really interesting.
Yeah.
But it's kind of this phasing out of the old world and the old ways, right?
But the British, I guess they're going to hold on to the old traditions as long as they can.
I do think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing me, Aaron hates the monarch, no.
You actually like it more than me.
I actually do like it more than you.
Yeah.
I don't, there is the side of it. Because I think the main lineage of it's really interesting. It gets a little weird when you have the brothers and the sisters and the people who really are inheriting a lot of wealth for doing nothing. Like I do think, and I do find it interesting, they put the kids through military and and to some degree as figureheads and, and as like a token of, our appreciation for the process of it. I do look at it and you go, when you get to places like Prince Andrew and you get into situations like Princess Diana, when it gets really scandalous and very, I think, distracting to what's going on in the world, that's where I think it gets really dangerous.
Yeah.
But I find politics and monarchies and dictatorships and all of this to be very archaic.
Yeah.
Like how are we still going to your garage and voting? Like I just don't understand this. I can buy
for those of you who don't know,
I can buy a decentralized currency on the internet, put it in a wallet, in a smart wallet, but I can't vote for my president via my iPhone. I do not understand.
Yeah. For context, our garage has been the neighborhood voting center for years.
Yes.
And, all right.
Okay.
You wanted to talk about Mar-A-Lago.
No, I don't.
No.
No. It's past.
No. We should talk about it because
I just think it's adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, because Nayib Bukele said something.
The president of
El Salvador.
President of El Salvador.
Who has constantly been attacked as a dictator and questioned for his tactics.
He's proving he can only become a dictator if he decides to not leave office after 2 more years. Sorry?
I thought you were going to talk about his drug war.
Oh, no. What I'm going to talk about is the fact that he said that if he had his government do what happened at Mar-A-Lago, he would be demonized as a dictator across the world.
It's very true.
And I thought that's a very interesting perspective for someone who we keep demonizing as a country,
Yeah.
questioning his ethics, motives, hunger for power, when he's turning a country that's been war-torn, trapped in poverty and violence for generations, and really bringing the most positive change I've ever seen in my country. And then he says, hey, look, Mar-a-Lago.
But dictators tend to do a little bit of good and a lot of bad. And I think we're in his era of good, and he'll decide. He can only decide if he does bad afterwards.
That's very true.
Right.
I think that's a fair analysis.
I guess my question for you is, at what point does he become a dictator?
Well, you're only allowed to have one term. They'll probably change it before he finishes his term.
You get one 5-year term, right?
Yeah, so he'll probably get at least 2 5-year terms, and he'll be there for 10 years. And
then if he doesn't leave after that?
Then I would say, you could say he's a dictator, and then you would have to evaluate what kind of dictator he is.
Brig, what were you going to say?
Oh, I read an article, and Pastor, and I'm sure you know more about this, but he declared a war on the drugs in El Salvador.
Yeah.
And I read an article that I know was biased in a sense, about all of the men that were taken off the streets and put into jails.
Yes.
If they even look suspicious, without given a trial or the right to a trial.
Well, look, so
that had to be the LA Times.
New York Times close.
New York Times, yeah. Well, I mean, he gets a lot of flack because on his Instagram he posts about that stuff. Like, he doesn't hide it.
No, it's wide open.
He posted a man who had no tattoos and said, "Does this man look like a war or like a gang member to you?" And then this next scroll, Brooke, was the guy had like a tattoo in his lip that was gang related.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Ha ha, little to the eye, it's unknown that this man's a gang member, but when you go deeper, you find that this is a warlord, blah, blah, blah," all this stuff. And I'm like, man, he put him on blast.
Yeah.
Yep.
Put his business out there. And he's
Yeah.
like, this man is off the street from now on. And like, he just arrested the person, not for doing anything illegal.
When they say that they were arrested without any proof, the gangs actually tattoo themselves.
Yeah, not the most strategic stealth.
No, so
operation.
if you have a face tattoo that says, I'm in this gang, he's basically saying that's enough proof that you're in the gang.
I couldn't believe the most notorious gang is it M80.
M80. Well, it's not. The band is M83.
I know that's what I knew I was gonna get it wrong. What's it called?
No, you blocked out my brain.
But they killed like 87 people
Is it
in
MS-13?
3 days.
MS-13.
Yes.
M83.
Sorry,
MS-13.
I end up having brain freeze from you, Brooke.
I've never done that to you before. I'm kind of proud.
Yes, MS-13 is the most notorious gang, probably.
The crazy thing about MS-13 was that it was probably the most notorious gang. It was the most organized and notorious gang in the United States.
Yeah.
They had something like 50 chapters in different states across the U.S. And then when LA did a mass like gang bust and sent everyone back to El Salvador, they made El Salvador very violent, which is really interesting, right?
Yeah.
And the same way that they busted the MS-13 gang members in LA is kind of similar to how Bukele is busting them in
We
El
just don't
Salvador.
talk about that here.
We just don't talk about it.
Yeah, I didn't realize they originated in LA in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. And they were known for not using guns, but for cutting up people with machetes. So they would cut up rival gangs. So they knew if it was like a Blood or a Crip, if there was a shooting, but if an MS-13 was involved, they would go in and cut everyone's limbs off. Yeah.
Which is pretty brutal, and maybe we don't need to be that descriptive today.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's intense. But here's the thing. Bukele, when you're looking at dictators, you're not looking at people who are trying to educate the masses.
Right.
And he's transformed the educational system. He's given every single student a laptop computer. He's giving every student access to information. He's pouring money into the schools and teachers. Most dictators want to make their people more ignorant and eliminate access to information.
Right.
Bukele is trying to make his people more educated and giving them access to all the information that the world has. So at least at the present time, I would say his intentions are to transform the livelihoods of the people of El Salvador, which I am completely for.
So would you deem the actions of our presidents, I guess it would be President Obama and President Biden, with so much social capitalism infusing into, it's not even capitalism, it's just socialism infusing into the government by forgiving loans, by creating Obamacare, by essentially empowering the lower income class, so much so, because really Biden's now helping kind of the middle, which is, I think, more helpful because it's a deteriorating middle. But Obama really did empower the lower income class, which creates a dependency on the government to a point where, I mean, he incentivized having babies and having children and increasing welfare with family systems in lower income neighborhoods. Okay. Do you think the United States makes it easy for people who do not have the financial ability to go to college easy? Do you feel like we're actually do you feel like we are helping people become more educated in all class systems? Because education in the United States is an upper class thing.
Well, no, I mean, we try to make education accessible to everyone.
Do you believe that? It's what we say. We offer student loans. We offer indentured
student loans are for once you go to college.
To a credit union. What?
Well, student loans are for going to college.
Right. But not everyone can access student loans.
No, I know.
Not everyone can access college.
I mean, obviously, there needs to be massive educational reform in the United States.
Right. I mean, El Salvador has schools K through 12 too. I'm saying you're looking at it, you're comparing him giving iPads to every student as him bringing in education. I would say that's a really good thing. I'd say that's not very dictatorial, dictatorial, right, of him to do that. I would say that most kids in LAUSD classrooms wouldn't even have that. Right. I would say that pre-COVID, where they had to do a huge tablet buy.
Oh, that was a huge problem in New York, that when they're talking about educating from home.
Right.
Kids didn't have access to computers and laptops. I want to go back to what Bukele said about Mar-A-Lago.
Okay.
You've read some stuff about Mar-A-Lago. What are some of your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't know enough. I mean, Trump had documents that he shouldn't have had, right? Mm-hmm. And I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and they said, I can't believe he took something out of the White House that he shouldn't have. And I was like, that's crazy. You think your CEO leaves all of his important documents in his office? Or you think he takes stuff home?
I was going to say, you think Trump did something he shouldn't have? What?
Yeah, also. No, but I'm like, I think I'm making it personal. Like, you don't think every CEO in the entirety of the United States, and he's like, well, it doesn't matter. He's not the president of the United States. I said, yeah, but he actually has classified clearance because he works with security, like what is it? Security brokers, like or I guess like Raytheon and all these different companies, right? So I'm like, you're working with companies that you would have to have classified clearance. So your boss probably has the highest classified clearance you can have as a civilian. Yeah, probably. Okay, so you think he doesn't take documents home or accesses documents on those clients at home on an unsecured server? I don't know. Yeah. And he's like, nah, he probably does.
Yeah. So here's the interesting nuance.
Okay.
I don't know the exact proper language.
Do you think it's wrong first that he took documents home?
No, but they made it wrong.
How'd they make it wrong?
See, presidents have the highest clearance level.
Right.
Ex-presidents have the highest clearance level.
Right.
Biden took that away from Trump.
How?
He did, because the next president has to give it to you.
Has to give what to you?
The clearance.
He took away that clearance from Trump.
So every president historically has been given that clearance.
Oh, wow.
So basically, it's like
I didn't know
Trump was running fully clothed and Biden
took all the
made him naked. And then said, now if you have any documents, it's illegal because you don't have clearance anymore.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that.
And so part of what I realized as I was reading all this going, oh, it's illegal because for the first time in modern history, a president hasn't been given the clearance that other presidents have been given.
Interesting.
So
it sets up a really unhealthy precedent.
Right, because no president's going to give the next president clearance anymore unless it's from the same party.
Yeah.
And now, going forward, it'll be one of the things that can be, quote, negotiated or maybe eliminated.
Right.
And so I think that's a part of the nuance of it is illegal because for the first time in our history, an ex-president doesn't have that level of clearance.
Wow.
And because he doesn't have that level of clearance, he doesn't have the right to the access to that level of material.
Do you lose that clearance if you're impeached as well?
Oh, I'm sure you do lose it if you're impeached. So I imagine Nixon probably lost that clearance.
Clinton probably lost it.
No,
because he wasn't removed. He was just impeached.
Right. Yeah, and he didn't lose that clearance.
Right.
And And so it's a kind of an interesting dynamic. So I think there's several things. One, it shouldn't surprise anyone that Trump does stuff that is really questionable, right? I just think he doesn't.
My question is, why did he keep it? If he knows,
I cannot figure that out.
Why you keep the documents if you know you're not supposed to have them?
I think that's a part of his own like narcissism that he just doesn't think the rules apply to him.
Yeah, like you have to see. If you're a Trump fan, you have to see that that's not a good trait to have as a president.
It's not a healthy one.
No.
And then on top of that, I don't believe for 1 second the Biden administration didn't know. I mean, when President Biden said he had no idea, he had not been given any warning or any foreknowledge
of Mar-A-Lago?
the raid. Yeah.
No way. Brooke, you believe it?
I can't say that I do, Aaron.
I'm going, all right, here are the two options. He didn't know, and he's the most uninformed president in modern history. Or he knew and he just lied through his teeth.
Or he forgot.
Option C.
My man forgetting a lot right now.
Option C, he forgot.
It makes me sad. Like his speech a couple weeks ago was sad. It's tough watching a president deteriorate. It really is.
But I will say, I do think a part of what's going on is it's essential in the political landscape for the Democrats, for Trump to stay in the limelight. He has to be the center of the conversation. And on top of that, it's essential for Trump, for him to stay in the limelight. It's essential for his own ego. So it's almost like two colliding storms. The Democrats want Trump to stay the headline. Trump wants Trump to stay the headline. So ironically, they're working together to keep him in the conversation all the time.
You know what it feels like to me, and not to over-spiritualize this because I want to wrap this up, but it feels like what Christians do to the devil. And not saying that Trump's the devil, but I think that Christians focus so much on the enemy that the church ends up becoming more about the enemy than it does become about things that you're supposed to learn about Jesus and the disciples and the Bible and like how to grow as a human.
Yeah.
And I cannot go on sometimes on Instagram because somehow the algorithm has figured out that I'm a pastor's kid. And I get all of these these things. Okay. Anyways, I think we've lost our way now in this episode. We've gone deep into this hole.
Yeah. My conclusion would be right now we have a country that knows that you will vote for what you're against, so they don't have to tell you what they're for.
Okay.
And what we need to do is begin to actually fight for what we're for and spend way less energy fighting for what we're against.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you're spending your whole life fighting for what you're against, they set the agenda. Fight for what you're for and make a difference.
Yeah. Okay. This is it. Thank you so much for listening to the Battle Ready podcast. We are so grateful that you have tuned in. We are back. I don't know if we're better, but we're back. But
we're going to get better.
We're going to get better. I would say this though. At the rate that it's going, I'm not voting for anyone. I don't want to vote for anyone. I don't want to have any association to anyone right now. Anyways, okay. Have a great week. Rate and review this podcast. Be nice to us. Just having some fun.
Be nice to each other.
Be nice to each other. Don't go to my coffee shop. Have a great week.